Kevin Nash's take on Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero. So I imagine this is from his podcast. I only found the quote. When Benoit and Guerrero hugged at the end of WrestleMania 20, this is in 2004. Excuse me, that was the end of the business, Nash said. Has business been the same since WrestleMania? Has it come close to the Austin era? Has it come close to the NWO or Hogan era? You put two guys that were great workers, that were the same height as the referees, and I'm sorry, man, are you going to watch a porno movie with a guy with a 3-inch member? Even if you're not gay, you will not watch a porno movie with a guy with a 3-inch member. That's not the standard in porno films, so you put a 5'7" guy as your world champion. How's that?
And this was Eddie Guerrero and Benoit?
Yeah, so this is Kevin Nash complaining that two 5'7" guys were world champions in 2004. And he basically says that killed the business forever.
Brother, please. You can't kill this business. We have tried for 50 years to kill wrestling. So if they have killed wrestling, why do you say the WWE goes to these big stadiums and they do 50,000 people? Don't sound like it's dead to me. And all of a sudden their ratings are, as opposed to in other days, maybe not as high as the Attitude Era. But you got to say the Attitude Era, they had never seen any of that stuff before. So yes, the ratings need to be up. So as far as people talking about killing the business, listen, if I'd have done this podcast 10 years ago or even more, it said, oh, Dutch is just telling everything. He don't care. Go out there. And that would be held against me. But I'm out exposing the business. What exposes the business? Some of this crappy work they got going on now. That exposes the business. And you got to admit, since you were a little kid, James, and I'm sure everybody listening, since they were a little kid, they grow up with a couple of sayings in their head. Say your prayers, take your vitamins, and wrestling's fake. That's the three things you grew up with. You grew up hearing it at 3 or 4 years old if you were standing around the TV when your parents were watching wrestling and they said, it's all fake. So that gets in your head. So it's all fake. I don't care what they do. But did it kill it? No. We have had this same thought in our head for damn forever. And believe me, we have tried to kill this business. I've actually tried to kill towns, legitimately working actively toward killing a town, and I didn't do it. And I've told that story, right?
Oh, yeah, in PR, yeah. You put all the baby faces over and people turned up more the next week.
No kidding. And I said, well, my God, they're just stupid here. They're stupid. And so I put the baby faces over again the next week and worked a little bit of angle toward the end. So Carlos couldn't say, well, hell, you're trying to kill it. And then it went up. By the time I was trying to kill the business and just doing that one angle at the end, well, hell, it kept going up. And of course, we had a pretty good TV there too. And I couldn't do it. I said, well, these people are stupider than I thought they were. So we kept running it.
I'm going to give you a few examples here because Kevin Nash is almost becoming the new Ric Flair here as far as just things that are just so easy just to look at and just shit takes, basically. Anyway, I mean, he's already for many, many years been very heightist with like who draws and who isn't. Keep in mind that Kevin Nash is the worst drawer.
Elitist?
No, heightist.
What's that mean?
He's against people who are shorter. Everyone's shorter than him, practically.
No kidding.
I remember how big superstar Bill Dundee was and Jerry Lawler and Dutch Mantell. Hang on, no, they were all shorter wrestlers for the business. I mean, you were, 5'10", 5'11"? You were the bigger guys.
Yeah, and we drew sellouts. It's story. I don't care how big a guy was because WWE, WWF years ago had those big guys. You got booked on how big you were. And so Vince Sr., he wanted those 6'5" guys, those 300-pound guys. So when fans come up, they would say, wow, they're a lot bigger than us.
It drew
Well,
there, but it's still, if you compared it to a lot of the southern territories, they were WWF. I'm sure some people were like, oh, but I mean, those 70s shows were bloody awful, some of them. I mean, the action was so much worse than a lot of the territories I've seen from the same era.
And that's why when they started putting Memphis tapes, or some of the tapes from down south, Florida tapes, in Vince's region, it blew his product all to hell. I mean, they would still go to see the WWE product, but of course he would have a Hogan on there, or Bruno Sammartino. He would still have them on the shows, and Bruno wasn't that big. Bruno was kind of short. He's about 5'10". Yeah. And of course he weighed about 260, and but he wasn't steroided up. But he was bulked up.
He never failed a drug test, just like Scott Steiner.
And you cannot tell how many times I've rode up and down the road with a guy and said, oh yeah, but he's not a big guy at all. I'm thinking, seriously, because I wasn't a big guy, so I was defending guys my size. I said, what does that got to do with anything? Well, it's a lot. You need to be bigger than something. Well, I said, well, maybe in some ways you do. Boxers aren't big. That's why they have weight classes.
How big's MJF? What, about 5'8"?
Yeah, he's not. I'm taller than he is almost.
Hmm.
I'm probably not now, because I probably after you get older, you get shorter. But, and how big is, what's his name? Osteen, or what's his name?
Who, Kevin Steen? Kevin Owens? Or?
No, the guy he wrestled, we're going to see.
Oh, Osprey. I don't know. He's probably
how big is he?
Maybe, I think he's about 6 foot, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I mean, for the old school WWF, or in the 90s or 80s, or whatever, he'd be too short.
No, he'd never make it. And when he went out there and had one of these matches in the old days, they'd say, yeah, stop that goddamn wrestling. Quit doing so much of it. I've actually said that myself. I had a guy in Puerto Rico, and he went out and he just wrestled and wrestled and wrestled. And the people sat there like this, like, I'm going to have to go get a beer if this keeps up. So when he got back, I tell you, it was MJF, MVP.
Mm.
And he came down there, and I said, man, you need to stop. You need to stop this wrestling. He went, what? That's what it is. I said, yes, it is. But put a little bullshit in there too. That's what they come to see. They come to see the show. They don't come to see wrestling. If they did, they would just get them tapes of amateur wrestling and watch that. And he thought I was the stupidest son of a bitch in the world. But if you'd have tried that in Puerto Rico, wrestle, you'd have went down to 0. You'd go to the big show and have 500 people there.
Now, Chris Benoit was obviously, there was no nonsense with Benoit's style. Very hard hitting, of course. One of the greatest to ever do that kind of style. That's inarguable. Eddie Guerrero, when he got to the main events, guess what he had developed? He was always, from the mid-90s onwards, he was always seen as a great in-ring technician. But from the late 90s to when he got to the title in 2004, guess what he developed?
What was that?
Personality.
Wow, don't do that.
Mm.
Don't develop a personality. Because, hey, when I broke in, I thought somebody would tell me they don't like the wrestling. They like the interviews. I went, what? You listen for the interviews? Because I had a different mindset. And yeah, somebody that do a good interview, yeah, that's good for ratings. But I said, it makes your business look a little fake. Till I finally, it took me about at least, I don't know, 5 or 6 years to finally figure out that you have to have the personality along with the talent and along with the story to draw money. So it took me a while to figure that out. But once I figured it out, I made good use of it.
One more thing I want to add to further. Well, keep in mind this is Kevin Nash, who, as part of his booking deal, was calling, the guys like Benoit and Eddie Guerrero, the young up and comers who never made it to the main. Well, Benoit for a week maybe. The vanilla midgets. Oh, you're too small to get over, which is complete nonsense. It's all about story. It's all about personality. And for Christ's sake, Ronda Rousey was a woman and she was 5'6", and she was at one point the biggest draw in UFC. It doesn't matter about height. To a point anyway. But also Kevin Nash was saying, well, the business was killed after they were that was the end of the business after they were both champions.
What does that mean? The end of the business?
He just said it was when Benoit and Guerrero hugged at the end of WrestleMania 20, that was the end of the business.
I don't get it.
Kevin Nash also was basically saying it was the end of the business. So when he went back to WWE in 2002 and 2003, that tax year, WWE actually registered a loss of $19,455 million.
And that was a loss.
That was a loss. Now, it was mostly because they took a bath on the World restaurant, which was formerly WWF New York restaurant. There was a disaster. So that year...
Hey, they are not going to take that big a bath on a restaurant.
Oh, in Times Square, they did. Boy, did they lose a lot of money on that.
How much could they have lost?
About 35 million.
No.
I'm telling you. Hey, that's what they put on the books. Anyway,
no. Again.
The restaurant isn't the point, though. So if the restaurant hadn't gone under that year, they would have actually registered 16,300,000 or so profit, which is the lowest profit year since, I think I've written it, the 97-98 year. So that was the year that, obviously when his quad wasn't torn, Kevin Nash was actually part of the WWE. 2003 to 2005 years are significantly higher in profits, in the 40-odd million, and that's when Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit were champions, and they would be the best years until about 2007.
But they killed the business.
I know. Isn't that amazing?
And the numbers aren't saying that.
I know, and it's like the business doesn't exist now, where WWE is valued at $9 billion or so.
Yeah, that was the end of it.